I'd like to read the daily meditation for working through grief by Martha W. Hickman, both yesterday's and today's, March 8th and March 9th meditations. They go together for me. She starts the meditation for March 8th with a quote from Alfred Tennyson, the poet. "'Tis better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all." Martha Hickman writes, "Even in my pain, I hold close to my heart the gift of my loved one's life." The lines from Alfred Tennyson are often used to refer to lovers in romantic relationships, but they speak to all of us who have lost someone we loved to death. A father whose daughter had died said to his pastor, "We'd rather have had her for those years than not at all, but there was a while when grief took over." Those of us who have been through the experience of sudden, untimely death can relate to both parts of that statement. Of course, we could not wish the child had never lived, but there is a time when the pain is all we know. Yet even when the pain is most severe, we know we would never exchange our life for another's. A dear friend and mentor who had had a distinguished career but had never had children wrote to me after our daughter's death. Along with her condolences and shared sadness, she wrote, "Some people never have that much to lose." I couldn't help thinking she was talking about herself, and the grief I felt for her at that moment made me aware again of how much I had been given. Even in my pain, I hold close to my heart the gift of my loved one's life. Those are very difficult things to balance. In the grief process, there are seasons and days and hours when the grief is heavier than the gratitude for the life that we shared. And I have learned not to compare one person's grief to another. I can only search through the pile of stones that are my griefs and consider each of them. And I think it is a bitter grief to grieve the loss of something I never had than to have had the blessing of something I loved taken from me in death. Grieving the first loss is harder some days than the second. And other times I can't distinguish which one is harder. They both just hurt like hell. March 9th's meditation is accompanied by this quote from Andre Dubus: "After the dead are buried and the maimed have left the hospitals and started their new lives, after the physical pain of grief has become with time a permanent wound in the soul, a sorrow that will last as long as the body does, after the horrors become nightmares and sudden daylight memories, then comes the transcendent and common bond of human suffering, and with that comes forgiveness, and with forgiveness comes love." This is the hoped-for trajectory for working through grief and healing after loss. and how much time we spend in each of those places is often not linear. Martha Hickman writes, "My heart lifts in solidarity and longing toward all who have suffered as I have. May we find and uphold one another." A grieving father said after his daughter's sudden death in an accident, "I feel as though I have joined the human family." This sense of solidarity with the human community of empathy and mutual love is a hard-won bond. But in the face of tragedy, whatever its nature, one could wish for no finer resolution among human beings than that they should turn their grief into love and understanding of one another. I don't mean to be glib about the cost of this, but let's not turn away from the great gifts of forgiveness and love that, after a long struggle, rise out of the shadows to put their arms around us, even us. Well, friends, may you find solace in joining the human family. We all have suffered tragedy of one kind or another. And if we haven't yet, then we will. May we lift our hearts, and may they be lifted by others in solidarity, in love and understanding, not just in pain.